U.S. fighter jets launched a midnight raid on a CJNG Cartel bunker hidden in the mountains of Jalisco. At first, it looked like the stronghold was too reinforced to fall, but what happened in the next minutes shocked everyone and erased one of CJNG's biggest assets. At 12:05 a.m., U.S. fighter jets launched a midnight raid on a fortified CJNG Cartel bunker in the mountains of Jalisco. The site, valued at over $400 million in narcotics, weapons, and cash, lit up the night sky as precision-guided bombs tore through reinforced walls. Within minutes, flames consumed the compound. This wasn't random. Intelligence drones and DEA intercepts confirmed the bunker served as a command hub for CJNG's fentanyl operations and arms stockpile. Comparable to recent Coast Guard seizures of $473 million in cocaine in Port Everglades in August 2025, this strike was aimed at crippling the cartel's most valuable base in western Mexico. Cartel leaders believed the remote mountain position and its vast tunnels made it untouchable. But in reality, its size and importance made it an irresistible target. For weeks, drones tracked truck convoys carrying precursor chemicals into the bunker. U.S. analysts confirmed large arms shipments and command meetings were being staged there. Every delivery, every convoy, every radio signal was logged. The intelligence was clear. The bunker was directing CJNG's fentanyl production pipeline, and eliminating it before another wave of shipments reached the border was the only option. At midnight, the order came. Fighter jets dropped GPS-guided bombs, striking the compound's entry points and fuel storage areas. Each detonation echoed across the valleys, followed by secondary blasts from hidden weapons caches buried in the ground. The night sky glowed red as shockwaves rolled for miles, shaking villages and sending animals fleeing into the hills. Inside the compound, alarms screamed as gunmen scrambled for weapons. The once quiet mountain erupted in chaos. Cartel fighters shouted commands into radios, but communication lines were already cut. Men sprinted toward vehicles, engines roared to life, and convoys tried to flee through dirt roads carved into the slopes. But infrared targeting caught every move. Aircraft intercepted fleeing trucks, destroying them with precision fire, while ground forces closed in from surrounding roads to block escape routes. Gunmen fired blindly into the night, bullets cracking into the dark sky but never reaching the jets circling above. Within minutes, tunnel entrances collapsed, chemical stores exploded, and flames spread across storage yards. What had once been CJNG's most secure fortress was now a burning ruin. Gunmen scrambled across the compound, firing blindly into the darkness as the airstrike continued. Some tried to take defensive positions behind walls, while others ran toward trucks and motorcycles to escape down dirt roads leading out of the valley. But infrared targeting left them no chance. Every movement was tracked in real time, and aircraft intercepted fleeing vehicles with precision strikes. Convoys were reduced to burning wrecks within minutes. Helicopters carrying ground teams moved in from multiple directions, blocking every possible exit. For the cartel fighters, the raid was overwhelming. Within 15 minutes, resistance collapsed. Dozens of armed men dropped their weapons and surrendered. Others tried to flee into the brush but were hunted down by drones circling overhead. The raid was precise. Despite the scale of the explosions, no nearby villages were harmed. Local power lines flickered as shockwaves rolled through the mountains, and small brush fires broke out near the compound, but containment teams quickly secured the perimeter. Environmental teams later confirmed toxic smoke rose from burning chemical stores inside the bunker, yet no civilian casualties were reported. The precision of the strike was intentional. Every bomb had been calculated to hit only cartel infrastructure, sparing local communities. Villagers in the distance described the night sky glowing red and orange, but by sunrise, the fires were contained to the bunker itself. Strategically, the loss was crippling for CJNG. Intelligence analysts estimated the strike destroyed enough precursor chemicals to manufacture 80 million fentanyl pills, along with one of the cartel's largest cash reserves. Dozens of vehicles, warehouses, and weapons depots were eliminated in the firestorm. What had taken years for the cartel to build was wiped out in less than half an hour. The financial blow alone was devastating, but the loss of infrastructure and logistics capability was even greater. The bunker had been a command hub for operations across western Mexico, directing shipments, money laundering, and arms purchases. Without it, CJNG was forced to scramble, rerouting its entire network under chaos. But here's where it gets even more damaging. The strike came just months after the U.S. Treasury imposed sanctions in May 2025, freezing assets tied to CJNG's money laundering operations. It also came only days after Mexican forces uncovered a fentanyl lab in Michoacán linked to the same network. Taken together, these hits marked one of the most damaging series of blows the cartel had suffered in years. Analysts warned it would take CJNG months, if not years, to recover from the combined financial, logistical, and operational losses. The bunker was supposed to be untouchable. Its destruction sent a message to every cartel faction operating across Mexico. No stronghold was safe. By the end of the night, what had once been CJNG's most secure fortress was reduced to ash and rubble. Fires still burned in collapsed tunnels, black smoke rose into the dawn sky, and the mountains carried the scars of one of the most powerful raids in recent history. U.S. officials described the strike as a joint counter-narcotics mission, echoing the same disable and destroy model used in maritime seizures, where cartel boats are intercepted and sunk at sea. They emphasized that the operation was designed not just to eliminate drugs and weapons, but to send a message that even hardened bunkers deep in Mexico were no longer safe havens. Supporters hailed the strike as one of the most decisive actions yet in the fight against fentanyl trafficking, proof that the United States could reach cartel strongholds anywhere. Critics, however, warned that the raid marked a dangerous escalation, raising questions about sovereignty and the potential for retaliation. Mexican officials confirmed that their forces were informed in advance, but stressed that the mission would spark heated political debate inside the country. Media outlets across Mexico drew immediate parallels to the July 2025 raids in Guadalajara that seized dozens of armored vehicles and heavy weapons from CJNG cells. They framed the midnight strike as the next chapter in a widening campaign against the cartel's infrastructure. The legal fallout was equally intense. Human rights groups raised concerns about cross-border military operations, while U.S. agencies defended the action as a necessity to stop the flow of fentanyl. Officials pointed to record overdose numbers across American cities, arguing that leaving the bunker operational would have allowed another massive wave of pills to flood the streets. The raid, they insisted, was a direct move to save lives. Inside Mexico, analysts debated whether the strike would trigger more violence as rival cartels sought to exploit CJNG's sudden weakness. On the ground, the results were undeniable. The bunker was left in ruins, its entrances collapsed, its storage caches destroyed, and its command systems wiped out. Entire sections of reinforced tunnels caved in, trapping supplies and leaving the structure unusable. Fires smoldered through the night, consuming whatever equipment remained intact. Forensic teams moved in once the area was secured, combing through debris for evidence. They recovered encrypted hard drives, documents, and communication devices, a treasure trove of intelligence that could expose cartel networks and operations across multiple regions. Dozens of cartel operators were dead or detained by dawn. Survivors taken into custody were transported under heavy guard for interrogation. Their capture offered investigators rare access to direct information about CJNG logistics and leadership. For U.S. and Mexican forces, it was a double victory, a fortress destroyed and key operatives pulled from the battlefield. But here's where the result was most impactful. CJNG leaders were forced to reroute operations overnight. Convoys meant to use the Jalisco hub were redirected through less secure routes. Communications between cartel factions spiked as commanders scrambled to fill the gap. Analysts reported confusion and disorder across CJNG's western networks, evidence that the strike had succeeded in creating chaos at the highest levels. The loss was more than physical, it was psychological. The cartel had believed the bunker was invulnerable, but its destruction shattered that illusion and left its leadership exposed. This wasn't just a strike on a building, it was a message. The U.S. military made clear that bunkers, tunnels, and mountains would not save the cartel. Just like Coast Guard cutters sink cartel boats at sea, fighter jets had now erased a cartel stronghold on land. For CJNG, the warning was brutal: build it, and it will burn. The destruction of the bunker showed that even the most fortified positions could be reduced to rubble in minutes when the order was given. The psychological impact spread fast. Across western Mexico, cartel factions who once believed their strongholds were untouchable now face the reality that the U.S. could strike anywhere. Encrypted chatter intercepted after the raid revealed shock and panic within CJNG's leadership. Some commanders argued to rebuild deeper. Others insisted on scattering operations into smaller sites, but all agreed the loss was a crushing blow. The fear of another sudden strike forced them into defensive posture, slowing operations and cutting off supply lines. For local communities, the message was different, but just as powerful. Villagers who lived under cartel control saw fire consume the mountain fortress that had loomed over them for years. They watched as the glow of explosions turned the night into day, a rare moment when cartel power was broken openly and completely. Many quietly expressed relief, though fear of reprisals remained strong. Still, the raid proved that the cartel's reach was not endless and that its dominance could be challenged. But here's where the message carried even further. Political leaders in both Washington and Mexico City used the strike to signal broader intent. U.S. officials warned cartels that no safe haven existed, whether at sea, in hidden labs, or inside reinforced bunkers. Mexican officials, while cautious in tone, echoed the idea that the joint operation marked a turning point in counter-narcotics efforts. International allies monitoring fentanyl shipments saw the raid as evidence that decisive action could be taken against even the most dangerous cartels. The symbolism was as important as the destruction itself. By dawn, the bunker was nothing but twisted steel, collapsed tunnels, and smoking debris. Forensic teams carried away hard drives, documents, and weapons for analysis. Trucks sat as charred shells in the yard. The once feared command hub had been erased, leaving behind a cratered ruin. CJNG leaders were already scrambling, forced to reroute money, supplies, and communication channels in panic. The strike had ripped a hole in their logistics, and that disruption would echo for months. The midnight raid was not only a military operation. It was a statement of reach, power, and intent. It showed that the U.S. could project force deep inside cartel territory and dismantle the core of an empire in less than half an hour. For CJNG, the lesson was unmistakable. Strongholds can be built, but none will last. Every fortress is a target, and every target can burn.